Hey, welcome to Black Lotus, where we talk about all things strange and unusual. And today we have Lesley Mitchell-Clarke with us, and she is a Toronto-based certified clinical hypnotherapist who specializes in several modalities, including working with individuals who feel that they've had extraterrestrial uh, encounters.
Mhm.
So, welcome, Lesley.
Thank you so much, and I'm so pleased to be here, and it's just an honor to be joining you guys on a Sunday evening. I'm thrilled. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being here, really. And so Terry will be with us here shortly. She's having to restart the computer because her video and audio weren't working correctly, but she'll be here shortly. But we do have Wild and Kim with us. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi. How you doing, Ralph? How you doing, Amy?
Doing good.
Pretty good.
Steve?
Pretty good. So, Lesley, I'd like to talk to you about what you do exactly.
Okay.
Now, you don't just work with people who have had extraterrestrial encounters, right? You work with other people as
Oh,
well,
my
right?
goodness. Yes, I work with a wide range of individuals with all kinds of issues, from, wanting to quit smoking to having, phobias, or I deal with chronic pain. I'm also a specialist in pediatric hypnosis, which is
Oh,
extremely helpful, especially when you have little ones who maybe have been diagnosed with ADD or other issues, and we can do so much with hypnotherapy to allay these kinds of behaviors. So yes, I work and also. In addition to all this mainstream hypnotherapy, I am also a regressionist. So I do work an awful lot in past life and interlife regression, which is actually how I developed my techniques for working with experiencers. They're really drawn from the regression processes that I use in past life regressions.
I see. I see. Um, when did you first become interested in ufology and this particular use of hypnotherapy? Therapy?
Well, I have always been interested in ufology, since my earliest memories. My father had a telescope. Sometimes I felt like I didn't belong here. If any of you have ever had that feeling, even when I was a
Oh,
little
sure.
person,
Yes.
even when I was a little person, it wasn't, quite right, but here I
Right.
was. And I found that I had some very profound experiences of my own when I was about 16, when I was first an apprentice at a summer stock theater in the Black Hills of South Dakota. That's where the Rushmore Heads are. And I had some very profound experiences there, including a lot of sightings of craft, and so close that, the windows were even visible. And these would be, what I would call the sort of traditional Betty and Barney Hill type of craft that were, really saucer-like. So those were the types of crafts that I saw. And, one thing that I thought was very interesting, I remember one night early morning at 3 a.m., there were many of us standing around outside the theater, and we had just, struck the show that was closing, which means everything came down. It's a huge deal. And after that, we were all standing outside having a smoke of something. And, we looked up, and I said, everybody, look at that. And a really fast moving craft came across and did one of those crazy zigzagging things that are literally, impossible for the,
I don't know what that
whoa,
was.
whoa, man.
It was one of the aircraft. It was one of those flying
Whoa,
saucers.
whoa, yeah.
Well, they're gonna do the little sound effects tonight, right?
Man alive.
One,
But
two.
anyway, we were standing outside looking at this phenomena, and only about half of us actually saw it. So that's when I first began to think, well, maybe this is a kind of a collaborative event that people are experiencing, and maybe it takes a little bit of psi ability to perceive these vehicles and see them in a kind of a three-dimensional way. So anyway, my interest goes back all that way. And in university, putting myself through school, I worked as a psychiatric aide in a state mental hospital. And from there, I became a psychiatric technician. And I've always really worked alongside my other interests. I've always really worked in mental health. And about a dozen years ago, no longer, maybe about 15 years ago, I went back to school and became a certified clinical hypnotherapist. So that's really how I came to be.
Well, that brings up an interesting question. Because you work with so many people, how do you identify somebody who is a genuine experiencer and somebody who possibly has mental illness?
Wow, that is really a fascinating question. And what I would have to tell you is what I do. Because if we are ethical practitioners, we follow the same sort of pattern. So before I have anyone come in and see me for actually I do this for a past life regression too, but if someone calls in and believes they're an experiencer and they want to have a regression, I talk to them on the phone for probably about an hour. And during that time, I'm looking for telltale things. I'm looking for perhaps a complex mental health history. I'm looking for maybe expressions of paranoia or possible. What I'm looking for are dissociative diseases like schizophrenia. Now, if are you guys hearing all this noise?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's not just me then.
I didn't know you said anything, but yeah, I hear it too. Yeah.
Whoa. Oh man. It sounds like we're hearing from Sputnik. Listen to that.
Right, let me pick it up.
After all these years, where Sputnik is talking back to us. Anyway, so with a long history of mental health care, and then training as a hypnotist, and eventually specializing in these issues of regression, I'm very cautious. And in truth, not everybody who comes to see me and believes they have been, abducted or have had experiences actually have. There's an awful lot of mania that can express itself in fabricated extraterrestrial encounters, in the same way that, say, before the last century, there was an awful lot of religious delusions. Mental health expressed itself. Schizophrenia and severe mental health issues often express themselves with religious delusions. Now, what I think we see is that has been replaced by delusions of extraterrestrial encounter. Now, this is a small percentage of people. I must tell you guys, it's a tiny percentage. Most of the people who come to me, I believe, are completely genuine. They usually come in midlife, which is based on my experiences, midlife is when people often begin to remember more than they had, more fully realized fragments. It's almost as if the memories are either time dated or, and this is what I believe, that it's impossible to suppress human memory indefinitely.
Wow. Well, are the stories pretty much the same?
There are all different kinds of stories that I hear, and some of it depends on the age of the experiencer. Now, if someone comes to me and they're my age and I'm 66, if they come to me, they're old enough to have been victimized by the genetic sampling that was conducted by a certain gray race from Zeta Reticuli, and they had been given permission by the government, by Harry S. Truman, following Roswell. There was an exchange of high-end technology for the free range taking of humanoid beings to harvest their genetic material. And so this went on. So many people who are a little older, they have had some of these, traumatic experiences. And they are traumatic, many of them, because they were conducted by an insensitive kind of almost soulless group of beings. And but that's sort of age related, because that agreement was honored. That agreement with Truman and the our existing armed forces, it was honored. And so thank God we don't really see that in contemporary times. But what we do see are lifelong experiencers, people who have been taken since they were 3 years old. What we do see are participants in the secret space program. And by that, I mean, I think this is very widespread. I think we're just on the tip of the iceberg of that, because these people are waking up. It's the 20 and back. If any of you have listened to any of the material from Jason Rice, or even my good friend Captain Randy Kramer, you will have a little bit of insight into what these people have been through. But if I had to pick out one thing that the bulk of the people coming to me now have experienced, it is the 20 and back, the secret space program. And these dear people have a very specific type of post-traumatic PTSD. They are, in fact, veterans, unacknowledged veterans who have, in some cases, especially according to Randy Kramer, lost their lives in a completely unacknowledged way. And they have come back from these battles and these tours of duty with some very profound, acute PTSD.
All right.
Absolutely. Well, then, so my question is those that were the older generation that you're talking about, where they had to deal with Truman's agreement, the ones that are more contemporary now, are they still finding the experience just as traumatic, but maybe a different way?
Well, I would have to compartmentalize it a little bit. Now, the people that have been in service, the 20 and back, they generally have specific trauma issues that are unique to them. When someone comes to me and in contemporary times and we regress, what we often find, I mean, upwards of 90% of the time, benevolent, loving beings that are, in fact, very, if they're not genetic cousins, they're very similar to us in the fact that they're bipedal and they look like hominids. They may be taller or blonder, but essentially they fit into the pattern. So the kinds of encounters that seem to happen when someone is waking up are very profound and very positive. In fact, one thing that and it's not just me. I mean, I should point out, I'm part of the Experiencer Research Project under the auspices of Kathy Martin of MUFON, under MUFON's umbrella. So there's a huge research project that's been going on for some time, and we are now finally getting some results and some things that we can, specifically say that are commonalities. But it seems that the average is the wrong word, but the typical experiencer has been followed, or tracked or involved for most of their life. And I believe this is because many of the ETs are interested in people with psychic abilities. It's easier for them to communicate. Sometimes we're dealing with telepathic civilizations. And I mean, think about it. If you were an explorer and there were certain groups of Miocene apes that had an epiglottis and were starting to verbalize words, wouldn't you rather research them? So this is the kind of thing I think we're dealing. It's just plain easier for many of these beings to deal with individuals who have some level of psychic ability, and psychic ability seems to be something that is genetically transferred, like hair color and eye color and such. So I think that is that's the attraction of, and of course we may be in fact genetically related on some level to many of the beings that visit us. It's I certainly believe that myself, but that's of course up to everybody's own sensibilities to make a decision about that.
I want to break in here real quick. Lesley was on our podcast, Paranormal News Network, not too long ago. And she was talking about this very thing, about, the generational, that it happens with generations. And in my experience, which happened back in 1988, I was shown a board that was like a family tree.
Yeah.
And it had my mother and my uncle, and then me underneath that, and then my two children.
Yes.
And it was indicated through telepathy that, yes, I'm not the first in my family to be taken. And you had mentioned that that possibly most people who have been taken have been taken their entire lives.
Yes.
Now, I didn't tell you this at the time, Kimberly, but as soon as you said that, I had a flashback memory of my mother and I walking past a cow pasture. And why we would be walking past a cow pasture, I have no idea. We weren't farmers, and my mother was like a professional businesswoman. It just would be out of character for her. But and I think I was about maybe 10 years old, I think. But as we were walking past this cow pasture, I looked over into it and I saw this silver disc in the sky, and it was hovering fairly low. And I asked my mom, I said, "Mom, what is that?" And she says, "Never mind, let's go." And she grabbed my hand and off we walked, and nothing was ever said about it.
Yeah.
So it just kind of makes me wonder, with that whole genetic thing in mind, if perhaps we were both taken and that's where they dropped us off.
I would, if I had a large sum of money to wager, I would bet on that. I would absolutely bet on that your mother had been an experiencer, and that therefore you were, and probably, and we get a lot of this from parents that were involved. They either won't, later in life, I've had many experiencers who have recalled a memory very similar to yours, where a parent is involved, and they say to the parent, what happened? And there's often denial and suppression and a refusal to admit what happened. Now, whether that is something that an attitude that the parent assumes because they don't want to remember it, or whether they too have been taken and had a bit of a block, I don't know. But my feeling is that many parents, on some level, have allowed this to occur, have given permission. Especially in a military situation.
Ralph, Wild, Kim, you guys have been kind of quiet. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, you
Yeah.
mentioned families and stuff, and it brings me to hybrids. Do you have a lot of people talking about hybrids?
Oh, yeah. I mean, is a massive hybridization program going on, and I think we are the hybrids. I really do. You have the 5 fingers of man. I mean, we have been contributed to, I believe, by many different species. We have a reptilian brain. They don't like to use that expression anymore, but it's absolutely true. So we are the hybrids. But with regards to the hybridization program that was in full force with this specific the Zeta Reticulites, many of my clients have been shown their children and asked to hold them or talk to them or engage with them. And for most of my clients, it is deeply traumatic, not because they're traumatized to see these beings that don't look quite human, because they don't want to leave them. The Zeta Reticulites don't have any understanding of the kind of attachment we have to our children, even under these extreme circumstances, one might say. I have had grown men sobbing in my hypnosis chair because they have been made to, after seeing their children and engaging with them, made to release them. So I have no doubt that there are beings all over the planet that are contemporary hybrids and are so close to us, so close looking to us physically that we couldn't identify them.
Cool. I'll go next. Okay, I have two questions. I'll just ask the first one, and hopefully we'll have time for a second one. My first question is, well, thank you for being here. It's not a question; it's a comment. But what are the type of people you would recommend hypnotherapy, and what are the types of people you would not recommend hypnotherapy as a solution?
Okay, do you mean as a solution for a wide range of mental health issues?
Yeah, just
Okay.
hypnotherapy can be used to help people, right?
Oh
So
gosh, that's the main thrust of it. It's all about helping people process their feelings. Well, to answer that question, what I would say initially is in Canada, and I'm pretty sure in the rest of the United States, it is actually illegal for me to work with people who have been diagnosed with a mental illness. Now, that doesn't mean just, depressive syndrome or an anxiety disorder. That's what I mean by that is if someone has been diagnosed with schizophrenia, a bipolar disease, a borderline personality syndrome, any of the things that are true mental health illnesses, I cannot work with them. And I think that's best because their relationship to reality is tenuous. And so, hypnosis is really not indicated for someone who is mentally ill in that sense. And that's why, as I said before, if someone calls me and say, I've been abducted and blah blah blah, I have to have a long talk with them. And it's not only for their protection but for my protection, because my practitioner insurance, if I were to treat someone who was schizophrenic and not a controlled type of schizophrenia, it could be very bizarre and upsetting for everybody. Now, if I have a note from the attending psychiatrist and I'm working on a specific thing like insomnia or then I can still work with someone who has had a profound diagnosis, but they're controlled. So that's kind of the issue. Hypnotherapy is a benign, powerful process that has been around for at least 6,000 years. And if you believe in antediluvian civilizations, the Hyperboreans, Atlantis, Lemuria, whatever, it goes back even farther than that. And like all medical professionals, my first thing is first, do no harm. So, but hypnosis is a benign process, and when a trained practitioner is doing it, there is practically a zero possibility of any type of psychic or psychological damage. And one thing I'll just throw in there, because if someone does come to me and they do have a mental health history and they still believe that they have had these experiences after we discuss that, I have a psychiatrist and a psychologist and a psychotherapist, all colleagues of mine, who accept the possibility of an ET encounter, and they will be able to help that person and fully.
Wow. Oh, thank you so much. Well, that definitely answers my question.
Oh, you're welcome, sweetie. You're welcome. My pleasure.
If I could ask my second question. Okay, so I'm not an expert on hypnotherapy. I'd like to learn more, but I'm guessing a lot of people watching are also not experts. So this question is geared toward non-experts in hypnotherapy. I have heard some controversy behind the legitimacy of hypnotherapy. So, in order for you to address it, I wonder if you could tell us about the certification process. Like, how do you become certified? Maybe how you did it, and also what happens during the certification? What does that mean that you get certified?
Oh, all right. Well, again, I can really only speak to Canada. This
Sure.
may be slightly different in the States or in Europe or whatever, although I am allowed to practice anywhere. So that's a good thing. Now, the initial certification for becoming a hypnotist is not really huge. I remember that it was about a 3-month process, and within that 3 months, the way you learn to do hypnosis is you work with your classmates, and so to be able to handle addictions, phobias, weight loss, smoking, any of the usual stuff, you can accomplish that in about 3 months. Now that's just a beginning thing. That's just the basic license, and by license we have a provincial, you would have a state, we have a provincial board for which we take a provincial examination. We are actually regulated under the School of Social Work at the University of Toronto, so there's a governing body.
I think that's very important. That statement is very important. That gives a lot of legitimacy.
Oh yeah, there is a governing body, and also I belong to a international guild, which is actually based very near Boston and Massachusetts, the National Guild of Hypnotists, and through the National Guild of Hypnotists are actually the body that hands out certifications for not only our licenses but also for the additional practices that we take on. For instance, I think after I had my basic certification, the first thing that I studied was pain management and control. And so to do that, I had to study with a board certified member of the National Guild of Hypnosis. I had to take her training, at which point I was issued a bona fide certification. So that's kind of how it works. Personally, I would like it to be much more stringent. I would, I myself, have a bachelor's and a master's degree, and I would like it to be more along the lines of the types of accreditation that psychotherapists need. In fact, actually, at this point, I could join the College of Psychotherapy, but more government stuff, more restrictions, more insults about what I do. What's the point? So does that that's a perfect.
I would say
okay.
That's a perfect answer. I would say I mean, in my personal opinion, hearing that, it sounds like 100% legitimate. Everything you said. So I think that will help people. Yeah, I think that will help people that maybe. I think some people hear it. Yeah, they hear the term and they're not sure what to believe because they're just unfamiliar with it.
Right. Well, this is Medicaid. I mean, this is regulated. It's medical. It has training and guidelines and also I carry practitioner insurance just like any other mental health practitioner.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, you mentioned that.
I do. Not that and I once asked the insurance guy. I said, this is such a benign process. I've been practicing all this time. Who are the people that are making claims on this? Who are the damaged clients or patients? And he said all of the complaints and the issues that are bad come from the regression process. So there are many hypnotherapists who simply will not do regression.
That's interesting because you're saying kind of the opposite of what some people think. It's actually risky for the hypnotherapist.
Yeah,
it sounds like it's more risky for them than it is for the person getting it.
It is, because imagine if and I'm not perfect, I'm wildly imperfect. Say that I don't catch the subtleties and someone enters my treatment space who truly is mentally ill, and in my chair, because of something that I suggest, they have a psychotic break. Who's to blame? Me. That's the truth. I have to be Gosh, I have to be so strenuously, scrupulously sure that the person coming into my treatment space is essentially of good mental health. And
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good. It's a
God
very
willing,
ethical thing.
God willing, with my what's the word? With my scrupulous standards,
Yeah.
I hope that I will always. I hope that I will never make that mistake. The last thing I would want to do would be to cause any trauma to anyone, especially a person struggling with the lines between fantasy and reality. I would. I don't know what I would do. I don't know. I can't say. I would. It's beyond. It's beyond my comprehension. So I do everything I can to make sure that never
Well,
happens.
that's great. Yeah, it sounds like you're very ethical, very compassionate. That's good.
Okay.
Lloyd Zenner is in our room. He's a good friend of ours. And he asked, how many cases has she had where she believes that the patient did encounter ETs? And, Lloyd, one of the problems with having a live presentation, a live panel like this, is that if you come in late, you're going to miss something. And we already talked about it. Like our good friend Lori McDonald, who is also a hypnotherapist and works out of San Francisco.
Oh, wonderful.
She said basically the same thing, that the majority of the people she works with, she actually believes that they did have an encounter. Yeah.
I do. And, when I started in this work, even though I was fascinated with UFOology, I was ready to accept, and this is true of past life regression too. I was ready to accept that, well, it's all a metaphor. It's a healing metaphor. It comes from someone's imagination, but it's a metaphor and we go with it and it's healing and we release trauma. So I was ready to accept that and work with these dear people. But I'm telling you, after I work with the first couple of people, and one thing that might be interesting to put out there is the abduction phenomena. I don't like to use the word abduction, but the experiencer phenomena crosses all lines of socioeconomic development, economical status, racial or religious affiliations, or it crosses all of those lines. So I have people coming to see me who are it can be, attorneys and judges and university instructors. And then I also have people coming to me who can barely function, who are on public assistance. So it's.
So do you have anything that's in common between all of them?
Psychic ability.
They all have some psychic ability?
All have it. And maybe it's latent. Maybe they don't fully understand it. But once I get in there, they're telling me, once I get in there, I understand that they are able to communicate telepathically. They are able to bilocate. And see, bilocation becomes, and by that I mean astral projection. Bilocation becomes a big deal in the mature life of the experiencer, because they have agreements, they're participating in programs, and the experiencer in midlife no longer has the need to be floated out of their bedroom or floated through their ceiling or taken aboard craft. They have agreements and they astral project into whatever they are doing. And I think when we're engaging with beings that function at a higher vibrational level, we are able to be seen and interact in a fully, kind of physical way within the parameters of that vibrational level.
I have another question, but I know Kim has to ask anything. Kim, would you like to go before I ask?
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, this is kind of taking a right turn, but here's the phenomenon that I've heard of. And not a lot of people are talking about it, but I think it might be, there's something might be there. So let me ask you first, have you heard of the term or the phenomenon called gang stalking?
I'm so sorry. I have not heard that term. I have no idea what that is.
Okay.
Can you tell me what you mean?
Yeah,
by that,
I would love to. So yeah, like I said, it is. I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, but gang stalking presents itself this way. People are super paranoid and they believe that the government or someone is always surveilling them. So they think that like when they leave the house, people are like following them and photographing them. They think their internet is bugged. and
Oh.
it engulfs your whole life. And I saw some very weak, but I saw some very small similarities to the abduction phenomenon. I don't think they're related. I don't think they're the same. But it was so interesting because I saw little things in common with these people and abductees.
Well, I would say that fear is this thing that stops all of us from embracing life.
Sure.
And unfortunately, and part of this, I believe, the COVID response. The COVID has been terrifying. Many of us lost dear people. I did. It's been horrendous.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you. But also, these are very uncertain and frightening times, and many people are very, very isolated.
Sure.
So, just in my mainstream practice, without any idea of ETs, I'm dealing with an awful lot of paranoia and agoraphobia.
Okay.
I think people that maybe had a tendency towards that and who don't have a support system have gone off the deep end to a certain extent. Now, I also have people who may not talk about in deep paranoia. They may not talk about ETs, but they have a constant litany that the government is watching them and observing them, and that's really just I believe most of the time a paranoid manifestation. I don't think anybody's that interested in our minutia.
Yeah.
I really, really don't. I really don't think anybody's that interested in our minutia.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Very interesting.
Kim, what did you have to ask?
Well, I was just going to say that what she does is what I've always wanted to do, and it was through the reasoning of working with those that have had experiences, because I've had so many people contact me looking for hypnotherapists or somebody to help them as well, and that was the whole reasoning that I've been looking into it myself, because it is important. And
Yes.
there are more and more that are coming forward. Yeah. But then again, you still have a lot that are in denial, and you have that fear. And going back to what you said about it being generational, I've said that for decades now, that I believe that we are taken from the time that we're in the crib, and they condition us to the point to where we're not fearful. But I think that at times that the memories are wiped or not allowed to bleed through. And later in life, just like you said, maybe midlife, you're more apt to come forward because you no longer are tired. You're tired of holding it.
Oh yeah,
you're tired of holding it. And
I think that's the purpose. I think that these memories are designed to dissolve, and just as you said, when we're mature enough, it's almost like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. It's almost like when these people are ready to accept the multidimensional reality of their marvelous lives, they begin to turn it around, and our memories are not accurate. That's another thing I have to point out. We memories, that things that we have as children are memories, things that happen. They may or may not be accurate, but our behaviors and our fears and are all formed by information that the subconscious mind takes in, and all kinds of phobias, and people are afraid of all kinds of things. You would be astonished, but let's just say someone is afraid of cats, and they don't know why, and they come to see me, and I can't figure it out under normal means. So we do a little regression, and it turns out that when that person was a small child, a cat went, and so the subconscious mind says, "Oh, well, we're never going to let that happen again. That was terrible. So, we're going to put up a big moat, and no cats will ever get near us." We're going to, so this is how fears are formed.
Or it could have been from a past life as well.
It could absolutely be. People do carry in fears and patterns, and I mean, that's why we're here. This is the tough school, man. This isn't Yale or Harvard. This is fucking PS 189. I'm sorry. Forgive me for what I said. Oh God, I'm sorry. I meant it. This is the cruel school. We are here either because we have chosen to be at this exciting particular time on the crest of human evolution and disclosure, or sometimes we're here because we refuse to learn certain lessons over and over again. And look at the diversity on our planet, the diversity of people as far as development. And I'm not talking about technology. I'm not talking about anything to do with, I'm talking about deep soul development. I mean, you've got people who are amoral, who are, engaging in all kinds of crazy behavior. You got Trump down there in the swamp. You got all that shit stuff going on. And then on the other side, we've got the Dalai Lama, and we've got highly evolved, beautiful people who are almost seem to be of a different species. So we are the grand experiment, I believe. And I think what worries me now, and even I do feel, I'm not always, 100% positive. I'm very concerned about the schism, what's going on in my home country. I'm from New York City. I'm heartbroken by what I see as the division of sensibilities in the United States. And don't forget that during the Civil War, 51,000 people died. That's how much our arrogance and our stubbornness and our refusal to grant human freedoms, that's what that cost us. Brother against brother, cousin against cousin. And in my feeling, the American South has never recovered from the Civil War, and a large percentage of responsibility for that goes to the North, because they were exploited financially and in every other way and punished. So we still have this schism, we still have this polarization, and I don't know how you all feel about it, but I feel heartbroken, and I feel heartbroken that people in the United States are now dying or catching COVID wildly because they are rebelling against, I don't know, sanity. I don't know any other way to put it, but we have a lot of problems, and I still consider myself an American and a U.S. citizen. There's so much healing. How could we expect to become full-fledged participating members of any evolved terrestrial organization when we can't clean up our own backyard?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Until we evolve to that point, we're not going to be part of the Galactic Federation, as it were.
No.
Excuse me. But you're right. We do live in a fear-based society, and we always have. This COVID, it just is an extension of that, I think. But with that in mind, you were mentioning, we've got such a diversity in this country, and a lot of what I am hearing is that are negative things about aliens, and people who say that they're here to help us are kind of poo-pooed. I know. But in your experience, how many of your clients have expressed that they had negative encounters?
Very few. And those with the negative encounters, with the worst negative encounters, there are always human beings involved. So I would say any kind of things that have happened under the auspices of the U.S. military system, the 20 and back, those things have been far more traumatic than anything any of our, space family has ever done to us. There was the DNA and the semen harvesting and the ova harvesting and using women as incubators and fertilizing embryos and implanting them and taking them out. All this stuff happened, but it is over. And the new traumas that I hear about, the traumatic things that I hear about, in all honesty, are all related to the secret space program and mental conditioning, operant conditioning.
Interesting.
You spoke something about gifts, about psychic ability.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that as well. The fact that some of us don't get it until a little bit later, some of us got it earlier.
Yeah.
But I think it was like a exchange. Exchange for going with them, and they're giving us the gift of psychic abilities and other gifts as well, that we open up and learn over time.
Indeed. Well, I think we're all born with these gifts. There is no such thing as junk DNA. We have DNA that has not yet been instigated, DNA that comes with our forebears. You know, whether it's the Anunnaki or wherever it is, we have all kinds of potential that simply is not being activated, and it can be. So I'm sure
we've been dumbed down.
We've been dumbed down. We're like truncated, you know. But the good news is that just like Dalai Lamas and human beings who focus on the spiritual matters, we can open all that stuff up just by awareness. It's not lost to us. It's not lost to us. We can wake up the pineal gland. We can even just by living good, happy lives and being kind to people, all of that stuff, you know, will open up. The killers of our bodies and our minds and our spirits are fear, anger, anxiety, hate. These are the things that kill us. These are the things that we need to be afraid of, not what our poor space cousins, are doing, who are looking down on us and saying, "Oh God, when can we bring these people on board? When can we help them?" We're like teenage children who have gone crazy, you know, or even worse, we're like big toddlers with ray guns, you know.
But that's how we're taught, though. That's how we're taught, and that's how we're raised.
Yeah.
So that's the belief system that we are ended up with.
You're right.
We just have to get past it.
And it's just
different.
It's continually promoted by the government and the media. And you know, as I said, you know, until we can get past that somehow, we're going to continue on this path and possibly destroy ourselves. You know.
Well, I think the good. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. So sorry.
Oh, I was just going to mention something to our viewers. If you like what we do here at Black Lotus, there's a link down in the description for buy me a coffee, and it, you know, for as little as $5, it's a one-time donation. You know, it would really help us out. Also, we have a brand new Patreon page, and there's only one tier to it as of now. And it's only $5 a month, which works out to be like 16 cents a day. And if you commit to that $5 a month, what you'll get is, after every single one of our live shows, we're going to be doing a kind of just a chat kind of thing, kind of a little more informal than what we do here, every Sunday after the live show. And we're going to be doing that tonight. We're scheduled to do it at 6:20 p.m. Pacific time. So if you know, please go over there and check it out and become a patron.
Yeah, I think for $5 you'll be getting an extra 4 hours of content per month. Basically.
About that. Well, I don't know about that, because I think we're going to kind of keep these kind of short. It'll be maybe a half an hour, you know. Oh, okay. But yeah, even still, you know, an extra 2 hours of content. So yeah. But so Lesley, I've got another question for you real quick, and that is that, you know, I know a little something about psychology, and I have a bachelor's degree, and I know that sleep paralysis can often bring on delusions.
Mhm.
Do you happen to think that some of your clients may have experienced these delusions during sleep paralysis rather than an
Well,
actual event?
it's certainly possible. However, most of my clients seem to be pretty fluid with going in and out of their bodies, and sleep paralysis. There are really two kind of categories we could put that in. Now, you know that when we get ready to sleep, our body manufactures and releases a lot of paralytics. These are paralyzing chemicals so that we don't act out our dreams. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, if I saw my husband get up and start talking and pontificating and do it, that would scare the bejesus out of me, or I would be bored and I would leave. I don't know whichever. But at any rate, what those sleep paralytics do is they keep our body from acting out our dreams, because the subconscious mind does not know the difference between reality and imagination. It does not. And my whole profession is based on that. It doesn't know. So what can easily happen is, it's possible, and this happens a lot in the teenage years and the tween years, as does sleepwalking. It's very possible to wake up to become conscious, rather, a little bit ahead of the dissipation of the paralytic chemicals. And so you do have a feeling of being, you can't move. It's incredibly disturbing. But to have that combined with delusions, I haven't really seen that, to tell you the truth. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. Why couldn't it exist? Because you could also maybe be in a hypnagogic state when you were waking up, which means kind of between being awake and being asleep. So why couldn't your mind be tripping out and your body doesn't move? Terrifying, but not necessarily metaphysical. Now, the other thing that I believe happens with most of us who are aware, and it happens involuntarily. I think that we leave our bodies. That we are, most of us, even whether it's conscious or directed as like remote viewing, or whether it just happens spontaneously. I think we can leave our bodies. Especially children do it all the time. And we experience things, and then sometimes there's a little bit of a rub coming in. You don't come in for a smooth landing, in other words. And I have actually experienced this in meditation, not when sleeping, but I was doing anyway. So we tend to come in through our heads. I don't know why. This just is what people tell me. We tend to come in through our heads, but sometimes it is an uneven entry, and that's when we get really terrible feelings of fear and claustrophobia, because we cannot move our bodies yet. But again, that wouldn't, if it's that kind of thing that is a spiritual experience, if it's that kind of thing, I don't usually see any kind of delusions attached. People will tell me, I'm having trouble getting back in my body. My body's not moving. They will literally tell me about what it feels like, but not necessarily experience trauma or delusions. But it could happen in just the natural strangeness of the way our bodies work.
Awesome. That's a great explanation. I've never heard it explained that way, but that's really great.
Thank you.
Wow.
So anyway, I think we're going to get out of here for the night. Leslie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here with us.
Bless your hearts, everyone. It's
you.
always so enjoyable. You know what it's like to be heard and understood and accepted for, a lot of the times I have to put the lid on this because I'm living in that mainstream world, but to be able to talk to you guys and get your wonderful feedback and your questions, it means everything to me. Thank you so much, and bless all of you.
Oh, thank you.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we are going to get out of here. Viewers, thanks a lot for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And hopefully we'll catch you over at the Patreon page. And so definitely click on that link. And again, like I said, it's going to be scheduled for 6:20 tonight, Pacific Standard Time. So definitely hopefully we can catch you over there. So until next time, folks, keep thinking and question everything.
Yeah. Bye, guys.